welcome to Alien Whispers. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Now, let's dive into the story. The sun dipped low on the horizon of Zoria, bathing the crystalline cityscape in a warm, golden glow. The planet's advanced technology hummed softly in the background, a testament to its people's ingenuity and harmony with their environment. Towering spires of iridescent metal reached toward the sky, while below, lush gardens teemed with bioluminescent flora, their gentle glow adding to the serene beauty of the world. It was a place of wonder, a beacon of peace in a vast and often hostile universe. But today, that peace was shattered. Princess Arya stood on the grand balcony of the royal palace, her silver gown catching the fading light. At 22, she was young but carried herself with the grace and poise of a leader far beyond her years. Her people looked to her as their future queen, a symbol of hope and compassion. Yet now, as she gazed upward, her heart sank. The sky, usually a canvas of tranquil blues and purples, was now marred by the dark, angular shapes of Earth's warships. They hovered menacingly, their presence a stark reminder of the growing conflict between Zoria and the Earth Federation. The distant hum of their engines echoed through the air, a sound that sent shivers down Arya's spine. She had heard stories of the humans' aggression, their relentless pursuit of resources, but she had never imagined it would come to this. Her hands gripped the balcony railing tightly, her knuckles whitening as she struggled to process the scene before her. The warships were not just a threat, they were a declaration of war. Zoria's defenses were strong, but the humans were cunning, their technology formidable. And now, they had come for what they wanted, Zoria's rich mineral deposits, vital to both worlds, but coveted by those who sought power above all else. Arya's mind raced. She had always believed in diplomacy, in the possibility of coexistence. Her father, the king, had taught her that true strength lay not in conquest but in understanding. Yet the humans seemed to operate on a different philosophy, one of domination and control. She could feel the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her, the lives of her people resting on her shoulders. Behind her, the balcony doors slid open with a soft hiss. General Zorian, a seasoned warrior with decades of service to the Zorian crown, stepped out. His uniform, adorned with medals of valor, gleamed in the fading light, but his face was etched with concern. He was a man of few words, but his presence was a comfort to Arya, a steady hand in times of uncertainty. "Your Highness," he said, his voice steady but heavy with gravity. "The situation is critical. Our scouts report that the Earth Federation has launched a full-scale assault. Their warships are positioned to strike at our key defenses." Arya turned to face him, her expression a mix of determination and anguish. "How did it come to this, General? We have always sought peace. Why must they resort to violence?" General Zorian's eyes softened, though his posture remained rigid. "The humans are driven by greed, Your Highness. They see our resources as theirs for the taking. They have no interest in sharing or negotiating. To them, we are merely an obstacle." Arya's gaze returned to the sky, where the warships continued their ominous patrol. She could almost feel the fear radiating from the city below, her people looking to her for guidance. As the heir to the throne, it was her duty to protect them, but the path forward was unclear. War was not the answer, yet the humans seemed to leave her no choice. "I cannot let my people suffer any longer," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking to herself. "There must be a way to stop this war, to protect our home." General Zorian stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Your Highness, we will fight with everything we have. Our people are strong, and our technology is unmatched. But we must also be prepared for the worst. The humans are cunning and resourceful. They will not stop until they have what they want." Arya nodded, her resolve hardening. She would not let fear dictate her actions. "Then we must stand united," she declared, her voice stronger now. "Zoria will not fall without a fight. But there must be another way, a way to end this without further bloodshed." The general's expression was grim, but respectful. "I will rally our forces, Your Highness. But I fear the humans will not listen to reason. They have made their intentions clear." Arya's eyes met his, a flicker of hope amidst the despair. "Then we must make them listen. I will not let my people be subjugated, not while I still draw breath." As she spoke, a determination ignited within her, a fire that would guide her through the trials ahead. She knew the road would be fraught with danger, that her choices could alter the fate of two worlds. But she also knew that she could not turn away from her duty, no matter how heavy the burden. Little did she know that this was only the beginning, a moment that would set in motion a chain of events testing her leadership, her courage, and her heart in ways she could never have imagined. The grand hall of Azorian Palace buzzed with the tension of high-stakes diplomacy. Princess Arya stood at the head of a long, crystalline table, her silver gown shimmering under the soft glow of the hall's bioluminescent chandeliers. Across from her, General Hargrove of the Earth Federation sat with a delegation of stern-faced officers, their dark uniforms a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of Zoria. The air was heavy with unspoken threats, each word a delicate step in a dance that could either avert war or ignite it. "We will not surrender our resources without guarantees," Arya declared, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Zoria has as much right to its wealth as Earth does." Hargrove's lips curled into a sneer. "Rights mean nothing when survival is at stake, Princess. We will take what we need." Arya's trusted advisor, Chancellor Vexus, leaned in, his voice a low murmur. "Perhaps we can offer limited access, Your Highness. It might buy us time." She nodded, trusting his counsel as she had for years. Vexus had been her mentor since childhood, a steady presence through her father's reign. "Very well," she said. "Let's discuss terms for limited resource sharing." As the negotiations dragged on, Arya caught Vexus glancing at his communicator, his expression unreadable. A flicker of unease stirred in her chest, but she dismissed it, focusing on the human delegation's demands. The talks were grueling, with neither side willing to concede. Hargrove's impatience grew, his fingers drumming on the table. Suddenly, the palace alarms blared, a piercing wail that shattered the fragile calm. Red lights flashed, and the sound of heavy boots echoed from the corridors. Zorian guards burst into the hall, their energy weapons drawn, but they were no match for the human soldiers who stormed in behind them, clad in tactical armor and wielding advanced rifles. "Protect the princess," a guard shouted, raising his weapon, but a blast from a human soldier sent him crumpling to the floor. Arya's heart pounded as chaos erupted. She turned to Vexus, expecting his guidance, but what she saw froze her blood. He stood calmly, a communicator in hand, speaking in hushed tones to someone on the other end. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw something cold and unfamiliar in them. "Vexus, what's happening?" she demanded, her voice trembling with disbelief. He stepped back, his face a mask of indifference. "I'm sorry, Arya. This is for the greater good." Before she could process his words, human soldiers seized her, their grips bruising as they pinned her arms behind her back. "Traitor!" she spat, struggling against them, but their strength overwhelmed her. General Hargrove approached, his smile triumphant. "Princess Arya, you are now our prisoner. Surrender peacefully, and no one else needs to die." Arya's mind reeled, the sting of Vexus's betrayal cutting deeper than any physical blow. She glared at him, standing beside Hargrove, his loyalty traded for promises of power. "You will regret this, Vexus," she said, her voice low and fierce. "My people will never forgive you." Vexus looked away, but Hargrove chuckled. "Take her to the warship. She'll be more cooperative once she's our guest." The soldiers bound Arya's wrists with electromagnetic cuffs, their hum a constant reminder of her captivity. As they dragged her from the hall, she caught a final glimpse of the palace, its beauty now marred by the chaos of betrayal. Her people's cries echoed in her ears, fueling her resolve. She would not let this be the end. The journey to the human warship was a disorienting blur. Blindfolded and confined in a shuttle, Arya felt the vibrations of space travel, the unfamiliar hum of human technology surrounding her. When the blindfold was removed, she stood in the brig of the warship, a sterile chamber of cold metal and advanced systems. Her cell was small, its walls made of a transparent alloy that revealed the bustling activity of the ship's corridor. A force field shimmered at the entrance, its lobe was a barrier between her and freedom. The cell contained a narrow cot bolted to the wall, a compact sanitation unit, and a console controlling the environmental settings. The air carried a metallic tang, a stark contrast to Zoria's vibrant atmosphere. Beyond the transparent walls, guards patrolled, their movements precise and disciplined. Captain Thorne, a human officer with a crisp uniform and a condescending air, entered the cell block. His boots clanged on the grated floor as he approached. "Princess Arya," he began, his tone clipped, "you are now under the custody of the Earth Federation. Your cooperation will determine the conditions of your confinement." Arya stepped closer to the force field, her eyes blazing with defiance. "I am no one's prisoner. You have committed an act of war by taking me." Thorne's lips thinned. "War was declared when your people refused to negotiate. You are leverage, princess. Your father will decide your worth." Arya's heart clenched at the mention of her father. She had to warn him of Vexus's treachery, but for now, she was trapped. "And you are harboring a traitor," she shot back. "Vexus will answer for his crimes." Thorne shrugged. "Vexus is our ally now. Your loyalty is misplaced." "Loyalty is not something that can be bought," Arya said, her voice steady. "You will learn that soon enough." Thorne's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. "Meals will be provided at standard times. Any attempt to escape will be met with severe consequences." With that, he turned and left, the force field solidifying behind him. Arya sank onto the cot, her mind racing. The betrayal stung, but she refused to let it break her. She approached the transparent wall, placing her hand against it, and gazed at the stars beyond. They were cold and distant, but within her burned a fire no prison could extinguish. She whispered a vow to herself. She would escape, return to Zoria, and bring justice to those who had betrayed her. The Earth Federation's space station, Orion's Reach, was a testament to human ingenuity, a sprawling complex of steel and glass, orbiting Earth like a vigilant sentinel. Its corridors were wide and utilitarian, lined with pipes and conduits that pulsed with life support systems. The air carried a faint scent of ozone, a byproduct of the station's recycling units. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow that left no shadows for secrets to hide. In the barracks, Alex sat on his bunk, the thin mattress offering little comfort. He held a small, faded photograph, its edges worn from frequent handling. It showed his family, his mother's warm smile, his father's proud stance, and his sister's playful grin. They were gone now, victims of the Zorian attack on New Chicago 5 years ago. The memory still burned, a quiet rage that fueled his resolve to serve and protect what remained of humanity. At 25, Alex was a seasoned soldier, his skills sharpened by countless missions, but the weight of loss never eased. The intercom buzzed, jarring him from his thoughts. "Sergeant Alex, report to command office immediately." He tucked the photo into his breast pocket, next to his heart, and stood up. Adjusting his uniform, he smoothed the creases from the dark fabric, a habit born of discipline. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he made his way through the bustling corridors. Soldiers and technicians moved with purpose, their faces a mix of determination and fatigue. The station was a hive of activity, a nerve center in the ongoing war with the Zorians. At the command office, Alex saluted the guard at the door and was waved inside. The room was dominated by a holographic display of the solar system, its planets and stations glowing in soft blues and greens. Commander Vance stood before it, his posture rigid, his face lined with the weight of command. In his 50s, Vance was known for his fairness, but also his unrelenting standards. He turned as Alex entered, his eyes assessing. "Sergeant Alex," Vance greeted, deactivating the hologram with a flick of his wrist. "I have a new assignment for you." It's of utmost importance. Alex stood at attention, his hands clasped behind his back. Yes, sir. Vance stepped closer, his voice low but firm. We've captured Princess Arya of Zoria. She's being held here on the station in detention level 7. Your duty is to guard her. Keep her secure and report any unusual behavior. Alex's eyes widened slightly, a rare crack in his composed demeanor. Princess Arya? The Zorian heir? Correct, Vance said, his tone grave. She's a valuable asset. Her capture could force the Zorians to the negotiating table, or it could escalate the conflict. We need to handle this with precision. Alex processed the information, his mind racing. The Zorians were the enemy, responsible for the destruction that had torn his life apart. Guarding their princess was an unexpected twist, one that stirred a mix of duty and unease. Why me, sir? He asked, though he suspected the answer. Vance fixed him with a steady gaze. Because you're reliable, Alex. You've proven yourself in combat and in crisis. Your record is impeccable. But more than that, I need someone who won't be swayed by her charms or manipulations. She's a princess, trained in diplomacy and persuasion. She'll try to get under your skin. Don't let her. Alex nodded firmly, his jaw tightening. I understand, sir. I won't let you down. Vance's expression softened slightly, a rare moment of warmth. I know you won't, but this is no ordinary prisoner. She's the key to ending this war, one way or another. He handed Alex a datapad, its screen glowing with details of the assignment. Here's everything you need. Report to detention level 7. Corporal Jensen will brief you on the current status. Alex took the datapad, his fingers brushing the smooth surface. Thank you, sir. As he turned to leave, Vance added, remember, she's the enemy. Don't forget that, no matter what she says or does. I won't, sir, Alex replied, his voice steady, though a flicker of doubt lingered in his mind. Leaving the office, Alex felt a weight settle on his shoulders. Guarding a prisoner was routine, but guarding a Zorian princess was a different beast. He thought about his family, about the smoldering ruins of New Chicago. The Zorians had taken everything from him. Could he keep his emotions in check when faced with one of their leaders? He clenched his fist, forcing the anger down. Duty came first. As he navigated the station's corridors, he couldn't help but wonder what Princess Arya was like. Propaganda painted her as a ruthless figurehead, a symbol of Zorian arrogance. But was she truly the monster the briefings described? Or was there more to her story? He shook his head, dismissing the thought. Curiosity had no place in this mission. The detention level was quieter, the air cooler, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy of the upper decks. Guards patrolled the corridors, their rifles slung across their chests, their eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. Alex found detention cell 7, where Corporal Jensen was stationed, leaning against the wall with a weary expression. Sergeant Alex, good to see you, Jensen said, straightening up, relief evident in his voice. I've been holding down the fort, but I'm due for some rack time. Alex nodded, his eyes flicking to the cell door. I'll take it from here. Any issues with the prisoner? Jensen hesitated, scratching the back of his neck. She's quiet. Too quiet, if you ask me. Hasn't said a word since I took over. Just sits there, staring at the wall or closing her eyes like she's meditating or something. Gives me the creeps. Alex raised an eyebrow. No trouble at all? None, Jensen said, shaking his head. But don't let that fool you. She's a princess, right? Probably plotting something. Alex gave a curt nod. All right, I'll keep an eye on her. Jensen handed him the access code, a small chip that glowed faintly. Good luck, Sarge. You'll need it with this one. With that, he shuffled off, his steps heavy with exhaustion. Alex approached the cell, his fingers hovering over the control panel. He activated the viewing window, and the transparent wall revealed her. Princess Arya, sitting on the narrow cot, her back straight, her eyes closed as if in deep contemplation. She was younger than he expected, her features delicate yet resolute. Her silver gown, though tattered, clung to her with a quiet dignity. For a moment, she didn't seem like the enemy, but a person, alone, vulnerable, yet unbroken. A pang of something Pity, perhaps, or curiosity stirred in Alex's chest. He quickly suppressed it, his training kicking in. She was the enemy, a Zorian, a symbol of everything he'd fought against. He couldn't afford to see her as anything else. He adjusted his stance, settling in for a long shift. The hum of the energy barriers filled the silence, a constant reminder of the divide between them. Yet, as he stood there, watching her, a small part of him wondered what lay beneath her composed exterior. Little did he know that this assignment would challenge everything he believed. The detention cell remained as cold as ever, its transparent walls offering no privacy, only a constant reminder of captivity. Arya sat on the edge of the cot, her back straight, hands clasped on her lap. Her silver gown, now crumpled and faded, was a mere shadow of its former splendor. Yet, even in these circumstances, she maintained a regal posture, her gaze resolute, fixed on the energy barrier separating her from the outside world. The hum of the space station's systems was a relentless backdrop, occasionally interrupted by the footsteps of passing guards. Arya had grown accustomed to the rhythm of this place, the comings and goings of personnel. But today, something felt different. The approaching footsteps carried a purposeful cadence, not the casual patrol she was used to. She looked up as the energy barrier shimmered and dissolved, revealing a young man in the standard Earth Federation uniform. He was tall, lean but sturdy, with short black hair cropped in a military style. His face was stern, his eyes scanning the cell before settling on her. He carried a tray with a covered plate of food and a cup of water, likely her meal. Arya's heart beat faster, not out of fear, but from the shift in routine. She had seen guards come and go, but this one was new. His presence piqued her curiosity, though she masked it with a composed exterior. The soldiers stepped inside, the barrier reactivating behind him with a soft hum. He placed the tray on the small ledge near the cot, his movements swift and precise. As he did, Arya noticed the name tag on his uniform, Officer Ryder. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with suspicion. "Another guard sent to torment me?" The soldier straightened, meeting her gaze directly. "I'm Alex. I don't torment anyone. I'm just doing my job." Arya's eyes narrowed. "And what is your job? To cage me like an animal?" Alex's jaw tightened slightly, but his tone remained even. "It's for your safety and ours. We can't risk you escaping or causing trouble." Arya let out a short, bitter laugh. "Safety? You call this safety? Held against my will, far from my people?" Alex didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced around the cell, taking in its minimal furnishings. "You're being treated fairly," he said at last. "You have food, water, a place to sleep. That's more than some prisoners get." Arya stood, her movements graceful despite the confined space. "I am no ordinary prisoner. I am the heir to the Zorian throne. Your Federation has no right to hold me." Alex met her gaze, unflinching. "Maybe so, but right now, you're in our custody, and I'm here to make sure it stays that way." For a moment, silence hung between them, the air thick with tension. Then Arya's hand drifted to her neck, where a delicate necklace rested. It was a simple chain with a small pendant bearing the Zorian royal crest. She fidgeted with it absently, a habit when lost in thought. Suddenly, the necklace slipped from her fingers, the pendant clattering against the metal floor with a sharp ring. Arya bent to retrieve it, but Alex was faster. He picked it up before she could reach it, holding it out to her. "Here," he said, his voice softer than before. Arya hesitated, caught off guard by the gesture. She took the necklace from his hand, their fingers brushing briefly. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked, and something unspoken passed between them, a spark of humanity in this sterile environment. "Thank you," she said, her tone less hostile. Alex nodded, stepping back. "Be careful. You only have one of those." With that, he turned and exited the cell, the energy barrier reactivating behind him. Arya sat back on the cot, clutching the necklace tightly. Her mind raced. This soldier, Alex, was different from the others. There was a kindness in him, buried beneath the uniform and duty. Perhaps, she thought, she could use that to her advantage. Or perhaps, in this unlikely place, she might find an ally. For now, she would wait and watch, biding her time until an opportunity arose. Alex stood outside Aria's cell on Orion's reach, his posture rigid as he watched her through the transparent alloy wall. Inside, Aria sat on her cot, engrossed in a technical book filled with intricate diagrams of Zorian technology. Her brow furrowed in concentration, and occasionally, she scribbled notes in a small notebook, her pen moving swiftly in the elegant, flowing script of the Zorian language. The hum of the station's systems filled the air, a constant reminder of the sterile environment. Aria glanced up, catching Alex's gaze. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, as if probing for a weakness. "You humans preach about freedom," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the silence. "Yet you lock others away. It's quite contradictory, don't you think?" Alex kept his face impassive, though her words stirred a flicker of unease. "You don't understand our situation," he replied evenly. "War makes us do things we wouldn't normally do." Aria smirked slightly, closing her book with a deliberate snap. "So, you're saying you're not responsible for your actions because of the war?" "I'm saying that sometimes duty requires sacrifices," Alex said, his tone steady but firm. She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable, then returned to her book, leaving the conversation hanging. Alex shifted his weight, his mind lingering on her words. She was testing him, he was sure, but he wouldn't let her get under his skin. The detention level was unusually tense, the air thick with unspoken discontent among the crew. Late in the evening, 3 soldiers approached Aria's cell, their steps heavy and purposeful. Alex, stationed at his post, noticed their aggressive demeanor and stepped forward to intercept them. "What do you want?" he asked, his hand resting on his sidearm, his voice low and authoritative. The lead soldier, a burly man with a sneer, gestured toward the cell. "Just a little talk with the princess," he said mockingly. "She's been too comfortable here." Aria stood up from her cot, her posture alert, eyes narrowing. "I have nothing to say to you," she declared, her voice steady despite the threat. The soldier moved to push past Alex, but Alex blocked his path, his stance unyielding. "Stand down," he ordered. "That's an order." The soldier laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the corridor. "You think you can stop us, Ryder?" Without warning, the soldier swung a fist, but Alex was ready. He dodged and countered with a swift strike to the man's jaw, sending him staggering. The other 2 soldiers lunged forward, drawing their weapons, but Alex's training took over. He disarmed one with a precise kick and tackled the other, pinning him to the ground. The fight was over in moments, the 3 soldiers subdued, groaning on the floor. Aria watched, her heart pounding, as Alex caught his breath, his eyes scanning the corridor for further threats. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice tinged with confusion and gratitude. "I'm your prisoner." Alex holstered his weapon, meeting her gaze. "I didn't do it for you," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." Aria nodded slowly, a new respect dawning in her expression. For the first time, she saw him not just as a guard, but as someone capable of honor, someone who might be more than an enemy. The detention cell was bathed in the dim glow of Orion's Reach's nighttime lighting. The usual hum of the station's systems softened to a faint murmur. Beyond the transparent alloy walls, the corridor was empty, the guards' patrol sparse during the late shift. Aria sat cross-legged on her cot, her silver gown pooling around her, the Zorian royal crest necklace glinting faintly at her throat. Across from her, just outside the energy barrier, Alex leaned against the wall, his posture relaxed for the first time in days. The silence between them was comfortable, a stark contrast to their earlier tensions. Aria traced the edge of her notebook, her fingers lingering on the Zorian script. She looked up, catching Alex's gaze, and decided to break the quiet. "On Zoria," she began, her voice soft but clear, "we believe every living being is connected by a cosmic energy. It binds us, guides us. Even enemies can become allies, because no life is without value." Alex raised an eyebrow, his expression a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Sounds idealistic. I used to believe in things like that, but the war took everything from me. Now, fighting's all I know. Arya tilted her head, studying him. What happened to you, Alex? What made you choose this life? He hesitated, his fingers brushing the pocket where he kept his family's photograph. The weight of her question pressed against the walls he'd built around his past. After a moment, he exhaled and spoke, his voice low. 5 years ago, Zorian forces attacked New Chicago. My family, my parents, my sister were caught in the crossfire. I was away, training for the Federation. When I got back, there was nothing left. Joining the military gave me a purpose, a way to make sure no one else loses what I did. Arya's eyes softened, a flicker of empathy crossing her face. I'm sorry, she said quietly. War spares no one. But on Zoria, we honor those lost by seeking peace, not more destruction. Alex shook his head, a bitter edge to his voice. Peace? Your people didn't seem interested in peace when they leveled our cities. Arya's gaze didn't waver. Not all Zorians wanted that war. I didn't. My father taught me that true strength lies in understanding, not conquest. That's why I tried to negotiate, why I'm here now. Alex looked at her, really looked, and saw the conviction in her eyes. For a moment, the labels prisoner, guard, Zorian, human faded, leaving only two people sharing their truths. Maybe you're right, he admitted, almost to himself. Maybe there's another way, but I don't know if I can believe in it anymore. Arya offered a small, tentative smile. Belief starts with one step, Alex. Even a small one. He didn't respond, but his expression softened, a crack in his guarded exterior. The energy barrier hummed faintly between them, a physical reminder of their divide. Yet in that moment, they were closer than ever before. The detention level of Orion's reach was shrouded in the quiet of the station's night cycle. The fluorescent lights dimmed to a faint glow. The hum of the energy barrier outside Arya's cell was a constant, but tonight it felt less like a barrier and more like a challenge. Inside, Arya sat on her cot, her silver gown catching the soft light, her fingers tracing the edge of a small, folded piece of paper. The note, slipped through a seam in the meal tray by Alex, bore a simple message in his precise handwriting. Meet me tonight. Tap twice if yes. Arya glanced at the transparent wall, ensuring no guards were near, then tapped twice on the metal frame of her cot, the sound faint but deliberate. Morse code had become their secret language, a way to communicate under the watchful eyes of the station's cameras. Each tap, each note, was a risk, but the pull between them was stronger than fear. Alex, stationed outside, caught the signal and nodded subtly. He adjusted his stance, his eyes scanning the corridor for any sign of patrol. The other guards were at the far end of the level, distracted by a routine check. He slipped a small tool from his pocket, a device he'd repurposed to briefly disable the cell's audio sensors without triggering an alert. It was a trick he'd learned from a technician friend, a dangerous favor he'd called in. With the sensors offline, Alex approached the energy barrier and tapped a sequence on his data pad, lowering it just enough to pass a whispered message. Arya, he said softly, his voice barely audible. We don't have long. Arya stood, moving closer to the barrier, her eyes locked on his. This is reckless, Alex, she whispered, her voice a mix of worry and warmth. If they catch us, I know. He interrupted, his gaze intense. But I can't keep pretending. Every time I see you, it's harder to walk away. Arya's breath caught, her heart racing. She clutched the Zorian royal crest necklace, its weight grounding her. This can't happen, she said, her voice trembling. If my people find out, they'll brand me a traitor. I'm their princess, their hope. Alex stepped closer, the barrier's hum a reminder of the line they were crossing. I don't care about the consequences, he said, his voice low but fierce. All I know is I need you. I've never felt this way before, not about anyone. For a moment, silence hung between them, charged with the weight of their confession. Arya's eyes searched his, finding sincerity and a vulnerability that mirrored her own. She reached out, her hand pressing against the transparent wall, as if she could touch him through it. I feel it too, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. But this love, it could destroy us both. Alex placed his hand against the wall, aligning it with hers, the barrier a cruel divide. Maybe it will, he said, but I'd rather face that than lose you without trying. Aria's lips curved into a hesitant smile, torn between fear and longing. You're a fool, Alex Ryder, she said softly, but there was affection in her tone. Maybe, he replied, a faint grin breaking through his seriousness. But I'm your fool. The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment. Alex quickly reactivated the audio sensors and stepped back, resuming his guard stance. Aria returned to her cot, tucking the note into her gown, her heart pounding with the thrill and terror of what they'd just admitted. As the patrol passed, oblivious to the exchange, Aria and Alex exchanged a final glance, a silent promise to find another moment, another way to hold onto what they'd found in each other. The command center of Orion's Reach buzzed with activity, its holographic displays casting a cold blue glow across the room. Colonel Hargrove, a grizzled senior officer with a permanent scowl, stood before a bank of monitors, his eyes narrowing as he reviewed security footage from the detention level. The grainy video showed Alex and Aria at the cell's energy barrier, their hands pressed against the transparent wall, their whispered words inaudible, but their closeness unmistakable. Hargrove slammed his fist on the console, his voice a low growl. Ryder, you fool. He activated his communicator. Sergeant Alex, report to the command center immediately. In the detention corridor, Alex stood guard outside Aria's cell, unaware of the storm brewing. His communicator buzzed, and he answered with a crisp, "Yes, sir." Casting a quick glance at Aria, who sat on her cot with a technical book, he headed to the command center, his stomach tightening with unease. Inside the command center, Hargrove wasted no time. "You've betrayed the Federation, Alex," he spat, gesturing to the frozen image of Alex and Aria on the monitor. "A soldier in love with the enemy? You're a disgrace. You'll face execution for this." Alex's face paled, but he stood tall, his jaw clenched. "Sir, Save it," Hargrove interrupted, his voice icy. "You're confined to quarters until your tribunal. Get out of my sight." As Alex was escorted out, Aria sat alone in her cell, unaware of his fate. Her datapad, a rare privilege for a prisoner, chimed with an incoming transmission. The screen flickered to life, revealing General Zorian, her father's trusted advisor, his face stern. "Aria," he said through the encrypted channel, his voice heavy with disapproval, "you have defiled our honor with your actions. Consorting with a human is treason. Return to Zoria at once to face trial." Aria's heart sank, her fingers tightening around the datapad. "General, I never meant to betray our people," she said, her voice steady but strained. Your intentions are irrelevant," he cut in. "You are the heir. Your actions threaten our war effort. Comply or face exile." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Aria staring at the blank screen, her mind reeling with guilt and defiance. Aria sat in her cell, the dim lights casting long shadows across the transparent walls. Alex had been reassigned, his absence a heavy weight. The detention level felt colder, more isolating, with new guards who watched her with suspicion. Tucked beneath her cot, hidden in a seam, was a small communicator Alex had slipped her before his removal, a risky gift from a sympathetic technician. Late in the night cycle, the communicator buzzed softly. Aria retrieved it, her fingers trembling as she activated the secure channel. Alex's voice came through, hushed and urgent. "Aria, are you there? I don't have much time." "I'm here," she whispered, glancing at the corridor to ensure no guards were near. "Alex, they're saying you'll be executed. And Zoria, they want me to return for trial." Alex's voice was steady, though strained. "I know what I'm facing, but I can't stop thinking about you. About us." Aria clutched the communicator, her voice breaking. "If I stay, I could spark a war. My people will see my choice as betrayal. But if I go, I'll lose you." There was a pause, the faint static of the channel filling the silence. "I can't force you to choose," Alex said finally, his tone resolute. "But I won't give up on you, no matter the cost." Aria's eyes stung with unshed tears. You don't understand, Alex. Our love could tear our worlds apart. I'm their princess. I'm supposed to protect them, not endanger them. I get it, he said softly. But sometimes, protecting what matters means breaking the rules. I'd rather fight for us than live without you. Arya pressed the communicator to her chest, torn between her heart and her duty. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, she admitted, her voice barely audible. You are, Alex said firmly. We'll find a way. Together. The sound of approaching boots forced Arya to hide the communicator. She lay back on her cot, staring at the ceiling, her mind a battlefield of love and loyalty, knowing their next move could change everything. The Orion's Reach space station shuddered under the impact of Zorian plasma torpedoes, red alert klaxons blaring through the corridors. Sparks flew from damaged conduits, and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the air. In the detention level, guards scrambled to their posts, their shouts drowned out by the rumble of distant explosions. Arya stood in her cell, gripping the edge of her cot, her eyes wide as the transparent walls vibrated with each hit. Alex burst into the detention corridor, his uniform disheveled, a fresh bruise on his cheek from a skirmish in the upper decks. He punched the override code into the control panel, disabling the energy barrier with a flicker. Arya, we're under attack, he said, his voice urgent. Zorian forces are here, and they're demanding your return. Arya stepped forward, her silver gown catching the flashing red lights. My people, she whispered, a mix of hope and dread in her voice. They've come for me. Alex grabbed her arm, his eyes fierce with determination. I can't let them use you as a hostage. We have to get out of here, together. Arya pulled back, her heart pounding. But if we do this, the entire universe will hunt us. The Federation, Zoria, they'll never stop. Are you ready to give up everything? Alex's grip tightened, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. I've already lost everything once. I won't lose you too. I'd rather be a traitor than live without you. Arya searched his face, seeing the resolve etched in his features. Another explosion rocked the station, the floor tilting beneath them, forcing her to make a choice. She nodded, her voice barely audible. Then we go. Together. Alex took her hand, pulling her toward the corridor as alarms wailed and the station's defenses roared in the distance. The path ahead was uncertain, but in that moment, their decision was clear. They would face the consequences as one. The stolen shuttle hummed as it sped through the void, its engines straining under Alex's deft piloting. Arya sat in the co-pilot's seat, her silver gown stark against the cramped, utilitarian cockpit. Outside, the stars blurred past, but the radar blipped ominously, signaling Federation fighters closing in from one side and Zorian interceptors from another. Alarms wailed, and the hull shuddered from a near-miss plasma blast. We're not out of this yet, Alex said, his voice tight as he juked the shuttle to avoid another shot. His hands flew over the controls, rerouting power to the shields. Arya's eyes were fixed on the radar, her heart pounding. They're boxing us in. We need to lose them. A transmission crackled through the comms, and a familiar voice broke through the static. Alex, it's Technician Lena, said the human woman who'd slipped them the shuttle's access codes. I've hacked the station sensors to give you a window. Head for the asteroid field at Sector 7. It'll mask your signature. Alex exhaled, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Lena, you're a lifesaver. Why are you doing this? I believe in you both, Lena replied, her voice warm but urgent. Love can change everything. Good luck. Arya met Alex's gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the risk Lena was taking. Alex steered toward the asteroid field, the shuttle weaving through jagged rocks as the pursuing ships struggled to follow. For a moment, it seemed they might escape. Then a new signal pinged on the radar, closer than the others. A Zorian voice cut through the comms, cold and mocking. Did you think you could run, princess? It was Kale, a Zorian defector who'd joined the Federation, his loyalty bought with promises of power. You think you're heroes? You're just delusional fools. Arya's face paled. Kale, she whispered. He was at the negotiations. He must have tracked us. Kale's interceptor fired a volley, grazing the shuttle's hull and sending sparks flying across the cockpit. "I've sent your coordinates to both fleets," he sneered. "You'll never outrun them." Alex cursed, banking hard to avoid another shot. "Hold on, Arya." He pushed the engines to their limit, diving deeper into the asteroid field. The shuttle groaned under the strain, but the dense rocks disrupted Kale's targeting systems, buying them precious seconds. Arya gripped the console, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can't let him stop us." "Not now." Alex nodded, his jaw set. "We're not giving up." He adjusted the shields, plotting a risky course through the field as the distant lights of their pursuers grew closer, their fate hanging in the balance. The small shuttle touched down on the surface of a distant planet, its hull scorched and dented from the escape through the asteroid field. The landscape stretched out before Arya and Alex, a vast expanse of crimson dunes under a sky streaked with violet clouds. Strange, luminescent plants pulsed faintly in the distance, casting an otherworldly glow. The air was cool, carrying a faint metallic tang, a reminder of their precarious sanctuary. Arya stepped out of the shuttle, her silver gown tattered but her posture unbroken. Alex followed, his Federation uniform stained with sweat and grime, his hand resting on the sidearm at his hip. The silence of the planet was a stark contrast to the chaos of Orion's reach, but the weight of their pursuers, human and Zorian alike, lingered like a shadow. Arya turned to Alex, her eyes reflecting the alien sky. "Where do we go now?" she asked, her voice soft but heavy with uncertainty. "Nowhere is safe for us." Alex stepped closer, his gaze steady despite the unknown ahead. "I don't know," he said, his voice firm yet tender. "But as long as we're together, we'll find a way." He pulled her into his arms, and she rested her head against his chest, the Zorian royal crest necklace glinting faintly between them. They stood there, wrapped in each other's warmth, as the wind stirred the dunes around them. Beyond the horizon, the stars glittered coldly, a reminder of the war still raging and the fleets that hunted them. They looked out at the alien landscape, their hands entwined, their future unwritten. The question of their survival, and whether their love could bridge the divide between their worlds, hung in the air, unanswered. The crimson dunes of the distant planet stretched endlessly under a violet sky, the faint glow of luminescent plants casting soft light across the landscape. Arya and Alex sat on a smooth outcropping of rock, the wrecked shuttle a silent sentinel behind them. The cool air carried a metallic tang, and the distant hum of the planet's ecosystem filled the quiet. Arya's tattered silver gown shimmered faintly, while Alex's Federation uniform, torn and stained, hung loosely on his frame. Arya gazed at the horizon, her Zorian royal crest necklace glinting as she turned to Alex. "I used to think duty was everything," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "As a princess, my life was meant to serve Zoria. But now I see that love is just as vital, maybe more so." Alex leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his eyes tracing the dunes. "I sacrificed my honor for you," he said, his tone steady but tinged with vulnerability. "My career, my place in the Federation gone. But if I could choose again, I'd still choose you." Arya's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "We've lost so much," she said, her voice catching. "Our homes, our people's trust. Do you think it was worth it?" Alex turned to her, his gaze unwavering. "Every moment with you is worth it. And maybe what we've done can show others there's another way. A way to end this war, to find peace." Arya nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "On Zoria, we believe love binds all things, even across divides. If our story reaches anyone, perhaps it will inspire them to choose understanding over hatred." They sat in silence, the weight of their words settling between them. The stars above glittered, a reminder of the vast universe and the war still raging beyond their refuge. Their love had changed them, and though their future remained uncertain, they held onto the belief that it might one day change their worlds. What would you do if forced to choose between love and duty? Can love reshape the fate of two worlds? Share your thoughts in the comments below.